This is very exciting, very interesting, more interesting to see what the painters have uncovered than it would be for us to freshen up the paint and paint over it and sort of mask some of this original finish. The fact that we're down to the 1769 paint layer here, they were able to get us down to that, is just pretty extraordinary. I think part of what they're doing is they're making it look like stone blocks, ashlar is what they would call it, and that's a particularly relevant treatment for entries and then passages. They're trying to bring the indoors out, outdoors in kind of thing, and these ashlar blocks are sort of one way to do that. The yellow color on it is also a very common treatment for these spaces. So this is probably the most literal incarnation of the ashlar treatment, where you actually score it to make it look like stone blocks. The only other one of these that I know of in the region is a house in southern Anne Arundel County, a place that's called Larkin's Hills. And it has a lot of this scoring kind of peeking through the walls today. It's been patched and skimmed in places, but you can still see, the treatment of the arches and some of the scoring of the line, the lines to create the stone. And we have a period account where the daughter of the builder talks about the treatment and how it was made. And it seems to relate a lot to this. But these are the only two that I know of in the region where it literally is made to look like stone. It's not the only way it's done. At the Bryce House in Annapolis in the late 1760s, they put a slightly textured plaster in the entry and that stair passages all the way up to the attic. And then they painted it with a yellow distemper paint, but very similar to this yellow lime wash that we used here, as a way to suggest that it's stone without going to the trouble of actually scoring it to make it look like stone.
But this is a very deliberate, large element that is rare, I think. And how interesting it is to, the longer you're with a building and the more it opens up, the more that you discover and see this whole scale treatment is really a great find. And Willie had called me and sent me pictures of it, and I had no idea the scale of it. I thought it was just a small piece. And we did see a little bit of this exposed downstairs, but it looked like a distemper, and we had no idea what it was, and it looked flat. And I thought, oh, it's either a whitewash or a distemper on there. But it's this treatment it's fabulous. So.
What's really interesting about the plaster in the house from this period, the 1769 period, it's very distinctive. And first of all, it's put on really wide lath. It's split out a riven oak lath that's really wide. It's a couple inches wide, which for this region particularly is unusual. And then they did a very competent job when they applied it. They used good materials. They used a higher percentage of lime than you would find in a lot of houses. And they did although they're not using long floats to get real smooth surfaces, they have carefully worked the surfaces to get it nice and flat and flush. And the finish coat is really hard and durable. That's true for the plaster everywhere that was done in 1769. In here, it had the top plaster layer that creates the stucco look is treated differently. It's also hard and durable and really beautifully put on, but it has this gray cast to it. And that, to me, relates it potentially to the work in the house in southern Anne Arundel County at Larkin's Hills. But inside, eventually you go from this to wallpaper. And they start printing, certainly by the early 19th century, they're printing wallpaper in ashlar patterns to look like stonework. And it's common up through the middle of the 19th century. They eventually get more stylized and it devolves into other stuff after the middle of the century. But I think there's this tradition from about 1760 to 1850 of treating these passages in that manner.